Hello, dear friends. Here once again, a special edition of Conversation with a special guest. And today we have a special guest. But before that, I will just set the stage for our conversation later on. It's about Pakistan-US relationship that has never been free of friction, suspicions, or accusations. Although publicly they have been both vowing cooperation with each other. And a few statements, however, recently, including the one from former Special Envoy Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad, have basically reignited the old suspicions. A lot of people here, particularly members of the ruling coalition, have started saying this amounts to interference in Pakistan's internal affairs. And basically, this has once again refocus the primary question as to whether the United States is interfering, whether those statements by a couple of congressmen, senators, and Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad at all represent the Biden administration's view on Pakistan. So for this, to flesh out the issue, we have with us Micheal Kugelman. He is the Deputy Director of the Asia program at the Wilson Center, a very keen watcher of Pakistan, Afghanistan, and India. Welcome, Micheal. Thank you for taking time out.
Well, thank you. It's really great to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you. So let's kick off the conversation, and let me start off with a very basic question. Given Pakistan's current situation, the turmoil around Imran Khan, his party, how does Pakistan look like these days from DC?
Well, I mean, to be very candid, I really don't think that Pakistan is top of mind within the administration and certainly within the White House. I think what we've seen over the last few years is that it's really been the State Department that has been leading activities and engagement with Pakistan. I think from the perspective of the White House and maybe even from the Biden administration on the whole, you've got a relatively small number of really huge foreign policy issues that are really taking up almost all of the available policy bandwidth these days. One of those being the competition with China, and the other being the war in Ukraine. And we're getting to a point where the U.S. presidential election is getting closer. It's going to be happening in November 2024. So soon enough, in the next few months, there's going to be even less foreign policy bandwidth available for other issues, including relations with Pakistan, just because the administration is going to go into campaign mode. So certainly, I mean, there's always going to be those within any administration in Washington that are. Indeed, the very troubling developments in Pakistan are noticed in a big way by those in Washington that are focused on Pakistan. And I think especially because you're seeing this convergence of so many different crises, which in of itself can be perceived as a potential stability risk. But bottom line is that, and this is no surprise to you, I'm sure, Pakistan is simply not a front burner policy issue right now in Washington. And we can get into the reasons why, of course.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting comment as far as the US foreign policy and its preoccupation with other major issues is concerned. But Pakistan still remains at the center, at least, of the issues related to Afghanistan as well as the China-US relationship. But on the other hand, if we see that there are loads of cases against former Prime Minister Imran Khan, his other party leaders, there have been human rights violations. There was a brief mention of these human rights violations in the US State Department, Justice Department's recent report. That is welcome. But the perception here is that, particularly in this case, the United States has apparently, there's a perception, has apparently been indifferent, if not altogether interested to what is happening on ground here in Pakistan. Is that perception fair?
I mean, as I said before, I mean, there's certainly a strong awareness here of what's happening on the ground in Pakistan. But in terms of why, indeed, you're not seeing a lot of messaging, public messaging from the U.S. government commenting on the situation on the ground, everything that's playing out. The Biden administration wants to be very careful not to find itself getting dragged into domestic politics in Pakistan. What happened in months past with Khan's allegations against the administration, certainly have not been forgotten. And, the Biden administration these days, at a moment when, the relationship with Pakistan is not seen with as much strategic significance as it had been pre-U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. And I think the desire is to sort of stay above the fray and not do anything that could, bring the U.S. back into a situation where it's getting caught up in domestic political issues in Pakistan. So that I think is the main reason why you're not seeing U.S. officials commenting on the situation on the ground. It's not like nothing has been happening with U.S.-Pakistan relations. I mean, there have been a number of announcements. This is pretty innocuous, low-hanging fruit type arrangements. Like new accords to engage in cultural preservation activities, to fund those types of activities. There have been some new agreements focused around clean energy investments, things like that. So it's not like the U.S. is closing its eyes to Pakistan or anything like that. And certainly critics would say that that's actually a tone-deaf policy, that when the country is, at risk of seeing its economy collapse, huge levels of political polarization and resurgence of terrorism, why is the U.S. focusing on cultural preservation, restoration projects? But I think it makes perfect sense because, again, the administration wants to try to stay above the fray in terms of what's happening with domestic politics on the ground. It doesn't want it. It wants to stay away from that. Again, given what happened in recent months with the allegations that Khan made. And so I think that's pretty much what it comes to. Now, yeah, that's not to say if a Biden administration spokesperson is asked by a journalist what he or she thinks of these various things that are happening, that you're not going to get the spokesperson will just ignore the question. But I think that the idea is just to stay away from those issues. Now, that doesn't mean that there can't be things happening outside of public messaging or outside of the public. Who knows? I mean, we could discuss that. But again, the top priority for the U.S. when it comes to its relationship with Pakistan is not to get caught up in the domestic political situation.
Mhm. Okay, but do you think you refer to basically this the Khan statement about the cipher and cable and all this controversy, the conspiracy theory that Khan basically turned into a narrative? Do you think with this Khan crossed the Rubicon, and then it also basically put the Biden administration in a tight spot, and that made it just step back from Pakistan? And can it be reversed?
Well, I mean, clearly Khan and his supporters think it could be reversed because there have been a number of efforts to try to patch up ties with the administration through, the PTI's membership base in the U.S. signing these agreements with lobby groups to try to patch things up. So clearly something's at play there. But no, let's keep in mind the broader context. There are a number of things that Khan had done and said for a number of years prior to his allegations against the administration to make many within the administration here a bit weary of him. I mean, let's be very clear. When the Taliban took over and Khan said that Afghans have removed the shackles of slavery, that was a comment that did not go down well here in Washington. And I think he's perceived. I mean, Washington is not a very friendly place for Khan in the sense that many within the government have been, very unhappy with the things he said about U.S. policy. It's obviously been, harshly critical of U.S. policy going back to the initial years of the war in Afghanistan and so on. And so, considering that context, and then to have Khan accuse the administration of being complicit in his ouster, you could understand why many here are not going to be in any hurry to do him any favors. Now, if he were to return to power, if Khan were to return to power, does that mean that there'd be no hopes for U.S.-Pakistan relations? No, I don't want to say that. I mean, the administration will be willing to engage with his administration, but it's going to be very difficult. I think that one can't just assume that someone like Khan could make that the allegation that he did, and that the administration would just get over that, so to speak. It would certainly take time. Why he wants relations with the U.S. to improve. I mean, we see the importance, the economic importance of the United States to Pakistan. Being the top source for Pakistan's exports. The U.S.'s influence over the IMF. At a moment when Pakistan's economy is so troubled, it makes good sense that anyone that would want to return to power, anyone that is in power, would see the value of at least having a workable relationship with Washington.
And how would you read Zalmay Khalilzad's statements on Pakistan? A lot of people here in Pakistan felt very offended and said this is a direct interference in Pakistan's internal affairs. Does his statement or would his statement resonate Biden administration's policy, or maybe leading to a review of administration policy towards Pakistan?
So Khalilzad is a private citizen. He's not a member of the U.S. government. He had served in the Trump administration. He's not a part of the Biden administration. So why he's decided to weigh in on Pakistan's domestic affairs, it's a question I don't have an answer for. But I certainly don't think that what he says should be taken as reflecting any type of U.S. policy. And keep in mind as well, I mean, it bears noting that the Biden administration doesn't really have a formal policy toward Pakistan at all. Many administrations, when they're going to want to come up with a new policy, they do a review of the existing policy first. And so far as I know, the Biden administration has not done a review of the policy toward Pakistan from the Trump administration. So it's not like one could say that Khalilzad is reflecting U.S. policy, because there is no formal U.S. policy vis-a-vis Pakistan. So yeah, it's anyone's guess why Khalilzad is saying what he has. Though I would think, based on what he said, that many of Khan's supporters would applaud it, because I think he's really reflected very nicely the views of Khan and the PTI and its support base. He's Khalilzad is someone that is no longer working with the government, and he's looking for new opportunities. He's thinking of restyling himself as an analyst of Pakistan. I really don't know, but bottom line is no. We should not see what he said as some type of reflection of U.S. policy at all.
Well, okay. Thank you very much. That's a very fair comment, that Zalmay Khalilzad is a private citizen, and that Washington basically is not a very friendly place for Prime Minister Imran Khan, based on what he had been saying about that. And Micheal Kugelman believes that it will take some time to repair the damage done by Imran Khan's statements in the last few months. So thank you very much, Micheal, for this interesting, exciting conversation.
Thank you for having me.